Hey, so glad you're with us for the Thursday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. So much going on today. It's hard to even know where to start, but we're certainly going to be talking about how Gavin Newsom is so far behind when it comes to budget deficits in California that he's actually now thinking about trying to tax people who already left the state because it's so difficult there financially. Good luck with that. We'll also be taking a look at fraud, shock, shock, when it comes to Obamacare subsidies, as that issue rears its head again on Capitol Hill, and we'll probably get a vote relatively soon. And we'll take a closer look at President Trump's move yesterday, which I think is a good thing, to roll back President Biden's CAFE standards. Smart move on a number of fronts. But first, Jim, let's dive right into the first one, and that is President Trump yesterday. This is in the Oval Office, surrounded by people from the auto industry, lawmakers, as we'll hear in just a second, talking about rolling back CAFE standards, fuel economy standards that the Biden administration had imposed on the auto industry. We usually see this from Democratic administrations, but the left is getting tougher and tougher and tougher. Here's President Trump making that announcement as he reads the order.
Officially terminating Joe Biden's ridiculously burdensome, horrible, actually, CAFE standards that imposed expensive restrictions and all sorts of problems, gave all sorts of problems to automakers. And we're not only talking about here, we're talking about outside of our country, because nobody could do it. Nobody wanted to do it, and it was ridiculous, very expensive. It put tremendous upward pressure on car prices, combined with the insane electric vehicle mandate. Biden's burdensome regulations helped cause the price of cars to soar more than 25%. And in one case, they went up 18% in 1 year.
So by rolling back these standards, vehicle prices should come down. But in addition to that, Ted Cruz says you'll be safer on the road.
It also means people's lives will be safer, because what these regulations did is they forced cars to be more expensive and made of plastic instead of steel, because you had to make them lighter to comply with these standards, so you'd get in a wreck and people would die. The result of what you're doing, you're literally saving people's lives, and you're making it where families can afford to get a new car. These actions will drop the cost of cars and trucks thousands of dollars. That makes a real difference.
Yes. The bottom line here, Jim, is let the consumer decide. We see this all the time with the EVs and the mandates from Gavin Newsom and Biden, and that's thankfully been rolled back at the federal level as well. But the left just kind of wants to shoehorn you into a very limited number of choices here. And this is a great way of saying, no, you should get to choose what you want. And the automakers love this too. Jim Farley of Ford saying this is just a common sense decision.
Look, I think most Americans would say, what should the government regulate? Well, safety. All right, we want cars to be safe. We want to make sure their brakes work. We want to make sure the headlights work. We want to make sure that, they don't explode spontaneously like Ford Pintos. Sorry, Ford Pinto owners, But if you've ever seen Top Secret with Val Kilmer, you know exactly how dangerous Ford Pintos are as they roll them towards the enemy and blow up upon them. But by and large, if you want to buy a car that gets 1 mile per gallon, you should be free to do that. Not many people would do that. Most people would say, wow, this is unbelievably expensive. I can't afford to drive this car. And then it would. But the idea, we live in a country where if you're sufficiently wealthy enough, you can buy a Hummer, right? Not just like this, there was, by the way, the H1 was based on the military Humvee, limited number were produced for civilian use. By the way, only 729 units of the H1 Alpha model were produced across 2005, 2006. Then they had the H2 and the H3, smaller civilian market platforms. You know what? It's a free market, right? As long as those things are safe on the roads, go right ahead. The whole idea in which, we, the federal government, have decided not just, we want you to have a certain amount of fuel efficiency, but we're going to measure it over the entire fleet of a manufacturer. So basically we're saying to the car manufacturer, well, you can keep making the cars that are popular. If they're heavy, if they don't like bad fuel efficiency numbers, you can keep making them. But we're going to make you make a bunch of cars that have much better fuel efficiency, even if nobody wants to buy them, right? Greg, we live in a country where back in the 1980s, I can remember the commercials, you could get the Yugo, a tiny car imported from Yugoslavia. Although you got to like the simplicity of the message, Yugo. And that's basically all it could do. If I remember correctly, manufacturers' recommended retail price was $3,990, less than $4,000. You could get a new car. Well, you could get a new car, and I'm making air quotes for the the cheapest product since the SNL sketch about the Mexico-produced Adobe, which was made out of clay. Look, consumers know what's good for them. They will figure out what's good for them if they make a bad purchase, right? DeLoreans are cool. They can time travel, but you don't see them on the road very often anymore. And so my sense is let consumers decide. If people say, oh, fuel efficiency is important. Well, you haven't really convinced the buyers that there's something important for fuel efficiency. And finally, let's point out this was, Trump mentions it was enacted by Joe Biden. Beforehand, Obama had liked it. Hey, Greg, what do Joe Biden and Barack Obama travel around in when they're president?
The heavy beast.
The beast, which weighs like 80,999 tons or something. Okay, the beast, for obvious reasons, is extremely heavy. It's bulletproof. If you ever get a chance to see it, like the Reagan Library has one. The windows are like several inches thick because it's bulletproof glass. All of the doodads, all of the security proof that makes the car much heavier. There is no electric-powered beast. There is no fuel-efficient beast, right? Now, they've said, well, for security reasons, we need... Okay, but what if you want to protect your family? If you want to have a bigger, heavier car, you should be able to buy that. And the federal government has no business telling you what kind of car the car company can sell you, could sell you, assuming that the car meets all necessary standards for safety and things like that. So, good for the Trump administration. Utterly infuriating that this was U.S. policy for so long. Didn't make sense from the beginning. One step in the right direction.
Oh, no doubt about it. And what's an even heavier vehicle than most of the ones that we like? The electric vehicles, because they are considerably heavier. So that's contradictory.
Yeah, but the batteries are full of toxic chemicals, Greg. So that makes it safer and better for you.
Yeah,
just don't let it get on fire.
It's all about the environment. Yeah.
Oh, and don't park your electric vehicle on leaves during fall. Because if you live in Northern Virginia, it's not like there's a lot of leaves on the street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And, they have this idea in their mind, these liberal bureaucrats of, oh, well, everybody just has the same need for their vehicles. Well, person A might just need to drive to work and back, but this other guy's in construction. He's hauling a bunch of materials. Another guy's got a farm or a ranch. He needs a pickup. Those aren't going to get great fuel economy standards, but they do the job that needs to be done. And Jim, you and I were little kids in the 70s, and we were bigger kids in the 80s, and we remember these aircraft carrier type Buicks and Cadillacs and other things.
Turning radius of like 15 degrees. Yes,
But it got 8 miles per gallon. But man, you were not going to get seriously hurt in a wreck in those things. Those were a fortress.
Greg, I remember years and years ago, it was Bill Maher's show, back when conservatives didn't like him. And the great actor Ian McKellen, Gandalf, Magneto, he's a terrific actor. But he said something along the lines of, well, I take my bicycle around my village and I collect all my groceries and I bike back to my home, and I don't understand why people can't. Well, because you're just shopping for yourself. You don't have to take the kids to soccer practice. You certainly don't have to carpool. You certainly don't have to put a bunch of stuff in the back, say you're going fast-growing trees or something like that. All the stuff, right? Different people have different needs, and if a bicycle works for you, God bless you. Go enjoy it. I'm certainly not going to stop you, but don't tell other people that they can't get other stuff for what they need. And yet, this is just inconceivable to a bunch of people in this world.
Yeah, have some basic standards for safety, and then leave us alone.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of our mantra in just about every area of life, but they just won't do it. All right. Well. This is great news, and if you'd been frustrated about cafe standards or any other bureaucratic meddling in your life where it doesn't belong, some lines in your face might develop, but it can also happen in colder weather and just stress of the holidays or just general stress in life, and that's why OneSkin is a great solution to all of this. At the core is their patented OS1 peptide, the first ingredient proven to target senescent cells, the root cause of wrinkles, crepiness, and loss of elasticity, all of which are key signs of skin aging, and these results have now been validated in 5 different clinical studies.
Crepiness belongs in your breakfast plate, not in your skin. Now, sometimes you're thinking, I've tried skin products before, and it burns, it stings, it itches or something. Well, look, all of these products from OneSkin are certified safe for sensitive skin. We're talking free from more than 1,500 harsh or irritating ingredients. They're dermatologist tested, and they've been awarded the National Eczema Association Seal of Acceptance by the Good NEA, giving you powerful results without all the side effects.
Yeah, OneSkin has also just launched their limited edition holiday sets, including the Nightly Rewind gift set. And so that includes their best-selling face moisturizer, their new peptide lip mask, and a cooling gua sha tool. For a limited time, try OneSkin for 15% off using the code 3ML at oneskin.co/3ML. And after you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. So please support the 3 Martini Lunch and tell them that we sent you. That's code 3ML at oneskin.co/3ML. Well, we don't like government regulation, Jim. We established that already today and many times in the past. But we also don't like government fraud and waste. And unfortunately, we've got another example of that today as well, just as Congress gets ready to kick off another round of debate, it seems, soon on whether and how to extend the Obamacare subsidies, the emergency subsidies from COVID that were only temporary during the pandemic. But as we know, every temporary government program becomes permanent if the Democrats get their way, and that's what they want. But a new report from the Government Accountability Office, which was requested by a number of House Republican chairmen, shows, quote, rampant waste, fraud, and abuse have worsened health care for Americans using the Affordable Care Act marketplace plans while enriching big insurance companies. Now, this is finding large-scale systemic failures that allow fake identities, dead people, and massive improper use of Social Security numbers to receive Obamacare subsidies. As part of the analysis, GAO conducted covert operations, which even included creating fictitious identities that flooded health insurers with unjustified subsidies. 100% of the fake applicants were approved by the ACA marketplace as recently as late last year, and 90% of fake applicants continue to receive coverage in 2025. In addition, one Social Security number was used for 71 years of subsidized coverage. It was used to secure 125 different insurance policies. 66,000 Social Security numbers had more than a year's worth of subsidized coverage. $21 billion in subsidies paid out with no evidence of tax reconciliation in 2023. That's 32% of all advanced premium tax credits paid to identifiable Social Security number holders. And then there's a lot of dead people who are still getting benefits, some of which started getting them even after they were dead because people are stealing their Social Security numbers. So, Jim, just rampant fraud, and hopefully if they do extend these things, there's at least some oversight so we're not stealing everybody's Social Security number and fleecing the taxpayer here.
Well, Greg, I must say I'm pleasantly surprised that we have not seen a press release from congressional Democrats congratulating the American Affordable Care Act marketplace for its perfect score. Because 100% failure rate. I mean, like, even the TSA catches a few, right? Like, come on, like, really, even by the standards of government work, this is subpar. By the way, Greg, I would point out the Senate Democrats, last I've heard, want to extend the subsidies. People, listeners probably recall there was this long government shutdown. And finally, 7 Democrats and Angus King, who's not a Democrat, wink, wink, he's independent, wink, said finally we will reopen the government in exchange for a vote on extending the ACA subsidies. And a whole bunch of Democrats said, oh my goodness, you just got, you gave up all of our leverage for some magic beans and all that stuff. Well, what the Senate Democrats want is to extend the tax credits at the current levels, which is 4 times the poverty rate, which gets you up into 6 figures in a bunch of states, for 3 years. Hey, Greg, what's going to happen in 3 years?
An election?
Right? A presidential election, a big one. So we promised that if you give us what we want, we're not going to cause you any trouble until a presidential election year. And then we'll say, if you don't extend this to us, we will shut down the government. We'll see what the balance of power is in the Senate and the House. So things could be different then. But, do you think this is a good deal that Republicans should take? No, nowhere near that, right? Finally, I just want to point out for all of the people who are collecting those benefits, I understand the concerns of the Apparition American community. Closely related to our friend Irving Schmidlap and the non-existent American, but at least the Apparition American community once was living. True. They're not. Yes. As my good friend Dr. McCoy has said to me many times, he's dead, Jim. And that's, once you're at that point, the ACA subsidies, in fact, here's the good news. You really don't need to worry about health insurance because you don't have any health anymore. You're dead. There's not, so at minimum, and I like this, point of the release where, 100% of fake applicants were approved. 90% of fake applicants continue to receive coverage. Like, could you get them? They're right. Like, the investigation found them right here. Go get them.
Here's the
90%. Because like the fact that it's 10 means that they went out and they stopped a tiny fraction of them. We got 10%. You know what? That's good. Let's call lunch. Let's go.
Amazing. Yeah. 58,000 Social Security numbers receiving the money matched Social Security death data, meaning they were dead people's Social Security numbers. $94 million in taxpayer subsidies going to health insurers on behalf of dead people. And like you said, there really shouldn't be a lot of medical expenses piling up once you're dead. But
yeah.
if a living person is using a dead person's Social Security number, it's a little different story. Yeah. Crazy. All right. Well, let's keep you alive, and let's start with your liver. You know what's easier than fixing a problem? Not having the problem in the first place. Your liver is one of those organs you don't think about too much until sometimes you have to. And so supporting it daily is one of those small things that can make a huge difference in how you feel overall. And so if you want to keep your liver in good working order, try Dose. Dose is a clinically backed liquid liver health supplement that you just take in a daily 2-ounce shot. Tastes like orange juice, and it just cleanses the liver of unwanted stressors that is slowing your liver down.
Greg, little known fact, dead people's livers don't do that much. In fact, that's one of the reasons they can donate them, because they don't need them anymore. But you still need your liver, or at least a big chunk of it, because your liver does a lot. It processes everything you consume and performs more than 500 daily functions. We're talking about energy production, digestion, fat metabolism, vitamin storage. And when your liver is overworked, you'll feel it. So when you start drinking Dose daily, you're going to reduce that sluggishness. You're going to get rid of those midday crashes. You're going to support your metabolism, and it can even aid your daily digestion.
So are you ready to give your liver the support it deserves? Well, then head to dosedaily.co/3ml or enter 3ml to get 35% off the first month of your subscription. Your body does so much for you, so let's do something for it. That's dosedaily.co/3ml for 35% off your first month's subscription. All right, Jim, on to the crazy martini and Gavin Newsom. I think he's considered one of the frontrunners for the 2028 Democratic presidential nomination, but a long way to go. Apparently, Halle Berry last night at some event said that he shouldn't be president because he's done a terrible job as governor, which is true. But that doesn't mean that Gavin Newsom's still not trying to cook up more terrible ideas. This is courtesy of Town Hall, but it's also they're taking it from something that Jonathan Turley, the law professor over at George Washington University, wrote up. But Town Hall says under Gavin Newsom's leadership, the state of California went from a $21.4 billion budget surplus in 2019, the year he took office, to a $45 billion deficit in 2024. But rather than rein in the spending that's driving his state into bankruptcy, Newsom and California Democrats are revisiting the idea of a retroactive tax on billionaires who have already left the state. The 2026 Billionaires Tax Act would impose a one-time 5% tax on individual wealth exceeding $1 billion. And while technically using 2026 wealth figures, it would apply to billionaires who resided in California in 2025. So you cannot hope to flee, at least with your wealth intact. It's a penalty for those who stayed too long, hoping that rational minds would eventually prevail in California. Those are the words of Jonathan Turley. So, Jim, when it comes to Gavin Newsom, it's not enough that he's just bilking the people who unfortunately are stuck in California, but even the people who have decided to leave. If you didn't get out before this year, he's still coming after you.
First of all, Hotel California is supposed to be a song, right? And like the lyric, you can check out, but you can never leave. Like, it's supposed to be an ironic, dramatic metaphor. Governor Newsom, this is not an instruction manual, right? You're following, when it comes to the image of America, you're following the wrong Eagles, right? Okay. Eagles are an awesome band. But anyway, so again, the other thing is I just, find myself just rubbing the bridge of my nose and just getting exasperated. If you call it the 2026 Billionaires Tax Act, I kind of figure it would apply to, 2026. It's right there. And then if you want to call it 2025, do that. But don't say it's a 2026 Billionaires Act applying to 2020. No. A bit deeper in the piece, Turley points out United States versus Carlington. Court is addressing a state tax deduction issue back, enacted in the 86 Tax Reform 87. And there's a question of whether it would apply to 1986 stuff. The Supreme Court refused to strike down a 14 months of retroactive application. They called the change modest. 14 months? Like now we're beyond a year. Now you'd be calling it the 2024 Billionaires Act or something like that. I look at that and I'm like, I think, he points out that Sandra Day O'Connor, Antonin Scalia, Clarence Thomas warned against bait and switch taxation. I like the odds of a challenge to this law or this kind of application of tax law to the preceding year at the current Supreme Court. I mean, maybe you don't, but I would be filing a suit against this. I would be saying that you can enact tax changes forward. You cannot time travel. It's the second reference to a DeLorean in this podcast. You cannot change the law. Once you've been paid your taxes for a year, that's it. It's done. You don't get a second bite at the apple. You don't get to retroactively decide, we're enacting. No, we don't get to do that kind of stuff. I don't know for certain Supreme Court would spike this down, but I like the odds. And so good luck. Somebody make this challenge because this seems like an absurd interpretation of tax law.
No doubt about it. I also love the term a one-time 5% tax. We just talked about the Obamacare emergency subsidies that refuse to go away. Something tells me this wouldn't necessarily be a one-time tax. Or maybe he just trot it out whenever he thinks he needs it. But anyway, California, you got a lousy governor, and the one that comes next is not going to be any better based on the field that we see. Assuming it's a Democrat, that's your next governor, but seems likely. Anyway, Jim, have a fantastic Thursday. We'll wrap up the week tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos, Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast if you don't already and tell your friends about us as well. Thanks very much for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Greg Corombos. Follow us also at 3 Martini Lunch, the number 3 Martini Lunch on Facebook and Instagram. Have a great Thursday. Join us again Friday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.